Hey guys, welcome back. This is Steph, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about how it's like to run an Airbnb from out of state, 2,000 miles away, and things to consider before you take the leap going long distance. Let's do this. I've been running all of my short-term rentals from Southern California. All my rentals are in Texas, Tennessee, and Florida. I self-manage with some assistance from virtual assistants now, but before I did it all myself. So let's talk about some differences or what it's been like. When I first started, I was very hesitant about doing this from afar. I really didn't think it was possible. My first property was actually something that was local to me. But before I realized it, I was so involved and I couldn't help it because there was a sense of obligation because I was so close. As time went on, I realized that I really didn't have to keep going to the property, that I could run it from 30 minutes away without actually showing up. I just had to learn how to delegate. Once I started to treat my short-term rental that was really close to me like it was far away, I started to get comfortable with the idea of actually having an Airbnb that was far from me. Within a month of the first property, had our pre-approval and we were ready to go to get a property out of state in Tennessee. We actually met a friend of ours. He ran it successfully from afar. And because of that, we felt like, well, why can't we do it? And we were already running a short-term rental at that point. We had the system, we were getting the hang of it. And so we figured, you know what, sometimes your own backyard doesn't work out. So we took the leap of faith and we decided to go to the distance. So when we went out of state, the most important thing we realized was the importance of having really good vendors, or as they call, boots on the ground. Those vendors are everything. And what I did to find those vendors, first and foremost, I asked around. Sometimes you'll get lucky in that somebody will be willing to tell you their vendors, but other times they won't. So in those instances, I decided to go to Facebook. And what I mean by Facebook, I decided to go to Facebook groups. And Facebook groups are an underrated tool. They really are a great resource. And when you start treating social media more like a resource than just pure entertainment, you'll start to see the value when people are together, whether it's in person or in this case, virtual. So I started to join all the groups, like what's going on in this city or what's going on in this area. And not only did I join those, I also joined the ones where people wanted to go visit. So things to do in the Smoky Mountains, I joined those groups too. That way, I started to become an expert. I knew what was going on in those markets. That way, before I even purchased a property, I had a good idea of what to expect and what the infrastructure and culture was like in that market. And that's so important because a lot of the times when people buy short-term rentals, they'll figure this stuff out after the fact and they get into a world of hurt. And it's a lot of headache when they realize the market itself just isn't that friendly. My point of view is I really don't want to have to fight the locals to run my short-term rental. I just don't. There's plenty of markets in the US that are super short-term rental friendly, and those are the markets that I want to be in. Another way to find vendors, you could use Google, you could use Yelp. But what I really like about Facebook groups is that not only can you find vendors and touch bases with them there, but you can find other people that have used those vendors before too and talk to them. Talk to them like a referral. So then before you even reach out to that vendor to potentially do business with them, you kind of have a good idea, similar like you would with a friend that's giving you a referral on who they use. So you can do the same thing with strangers. And actually, it's interesting because a lot of homeowners, they want to be with other homeowners, especially when they're not neighbors. So you're virtual neighbors, even though your physical properties are right next to each other. So another resource when it comes to going out of state, besides boots on the ground, is the automation that comes with it and also the tech. And what I mean by this is making sure that that house can be equipped with the tech that you need. So for example, cameras. When you're managing from a distance, and I'm talking more to self-managers right now, not those that have property managers. You want to have cameras, you want to have, digital locks, Wi-Fi based locks. That way you have control as if you were there. So with the cameras, it goes without saying, but you should not have them inside. So we're talking exterior cameras here, like at your front door or by your garage. And those cameras, you want to make sure can actually be hardwired or somehow hardwired so that you don't have to worry about charging that battery. Another thing to consider too with that are the locks. Locks are super important. You have Bluetooth locks, Wi-Fi based locks. You have ones that are neither, and it's just a simple code that you use for every guest. Personally, I don't like that, because if it's one code for everybody, there's always that saying, well, what makes it to where they won't come back again? And that's the truth. You don't know. And I like the idea of being able to take away a code if a guest is no longer going to be staying there. That way they can't sneak in. I've heard enough stories where people will sneak back in, days after, just because they can get a free stay there, and, they'll take the risk. But when you're out of state, you don't want to feel helpless. You want to be able to have some control over your property, even if you do have boots on the ground. So another pro tip there. Overall, though, the experience isn't as scary as a lot of people make it to be. Most of it is allowing yourself to not have to always be in control. When you're managing out of state, you do have to depend, you do need to rely, and you do need to have a sense of trust for those that are your boots on the ground. So developing those relationships with handymen, with your cleaners. There's even third-party companies in some of these markets where their job is basically, they're like task rabbits, where whatever it is that you need, if you need a package inside and your cleaner can't make it, they'll just be the ones to bring it in. So cultivating those relationships is super important, because you really do need these people. I think out of state can be for everyone. The most important piece of advice, though, when it comes to this is you can't put your way of doing things on other people out of state. You have to ask them, what is your process for XYZ? Because if you try to implement your way of doing things onto them, you're gonna get disappointed. And, they might not like you either, because they don't want to be controlled. Cleaners, for example, they know how to clean, but you should let them be cleaners. You shouldn't give them checklists. Airbnb is a little bit different in that it's not just cleaning, it's a turnover. It's restaging the property. So I'm one to where less is more, make it simple. Yeah, you can have snacks for your guests and things like that, but try to make it easy as possible for your cleaners so that they can actually do it, and that it's not getting in the way of them cleaning. If not, maybe it's better to actually hire a third person where their focus is on the staging or the reset. A lot of the times, though, cleaners are able to do these things. It's just something that they've learned as part of the experience with Airbnb. But making sure that you don't go to a market expecting that the things that you want done will be done exactly to the way you want it done, I'm gonna let you know you're setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment. It's much better to ask a cleaner or a vendor, what is your standard process? And when you do that, you get to choose if they are a good fit for you versus the other way around. So go out there, get those deals. If out of state is calling you, take the leap of faith and do it. Just make sure you do your due diligence on the market that you choose. Good luck.